Hey everybody, it's Daniel here from InfoVest. Hope you're all doing well. So I've got an interesting article here for you coming out from betterdwelling.com. It's titled, Canadians have only fled the country faster 4 times since 1967. So the article starts off saying Canadians are packing up for greener pastures, and that does not mean Toronto or Calgary. It means out of the country. Statistics Canada, Stats Canada, data for Q3 2024 shows a sharp uptick for emigration, the process of residents leaving to settle permanently in another country. The third quarter is typically big, but this one was one of the largest in years. In fact, the quarterly outflow is the 5th largest since Canada formalized its immigration system back in 1967. All right, so what happened to all the predictions we were hearing that immigration is gonna skyrocket, post-COVID? We're gonna see a lot of people come in. It's gonna, hold the real estate market. It's gonna push it to the moon. We're actually getting here proof from Stats Canada the reverse is happening, right? Now, it says in this article, Canadians. Does that mean, these are actually PR holders? Are these actual Canadian citizens? I mean, I'm sure there are Canadian citizens in this data. I haven't looked into it deeply, but I'm sure there are Canadian citizens in this data that are leaving for better places outside of Canada. So definitely that is one factor. The other factor is that all these immigrants who came in, right, and was expecting a better life and was told by the Canadian government, this is going to be great, that is going to be great, and not getting what they expected, finding out cost of living is much more, inflation is much more, it's more expensive to live in Canada in comparison to the wage, right? The real estate prices, the shelter costs, the food costs, all high, right? Also causing a lot of these immigrants to leave. So sure, you could argue that that is a big component of why you're seeing a lot of these Canadians or immigrants leaving. Now again, it says Canadians. Moving on into this article, it says Canadian immigration had been on a steady climb over the past few years. The volume saw quarterly growth of 11.1% to 29,100 people in Q3 2024. That's 3% higher than last year, with typically the Q3 being the biggest quarter of the year. Now, even for the third quarter, this volume is unusually large. It marks the largest volume since Q3 2019, seemingly picking up from where it left off. Okay, so it's getting worse. Outside of 2016 to 2019, Canada hasn't seen more Q3 immigrants since 1967. In other words, it was the 5th largest third quarter for Canadians to flee the country since the country introduced immigration regulations. Those regulations banned immigration based on race, introduced point system to prefer those who presented higher quantifiable skills and values to the country. In short, the recent trend is an outlier that Canada hasn't seen in a friggin' long time. So, okay, there's 2 ways you can look at this article. You can say, all right, Canada's becoming less populated. So the positive view, right? The positive view is Canada's becoming less populated. There's going to be select few people who will immigrate into the country, possibly with maybe higher skills that could contribute to the Canadian economy and help out. There will be proper talent, stronger talent, and thus the ones who maybe are not so talented, you could argue, are fleeing back, right? Maybe you could put an argument there. The other side of the argument is that, okay, even though you get talented people, wouldn't wouldn't they know that, okay, I can live a better life somewhere else with the skills and the knowledge that I've attained, right? So if I went to a school here in Canada and I've done my MBA or whatever the case may be, and I got some skills, maybe I worked for a company, I've got some a year or so under my belt, and I have the potential to make more elsewhere with the skills that I have, and I'm being viewed better, and it's becoming so difficult for me to purchase a home here, cost of living, raising a family. Why should I stay? I can just go somewhere else, right? So that's the other spectrum, right? And the other spectrum also argues that with the outflow of these people, it also means that if they do own a home, they'll be selling it, or there'll be less demand for real estate because of how expensive it is, right? Thus, keeping a cap on the prices going up in the real estate market, or maybe slightly declining. But that's not the only contributing factor here, right? Immigration and population is one thing. I talk about on my channel more about monetary policy, fiscal policy, which have more of a bigger play into asset prices. But that we'll talk about in a later video, or you could check out my previous videos on that. But in the meantime, outflow of people, and we're talking about young working adults, right? The younger generation. Outflow of those critical key people who are maybe early in their career or mid in their career, who are going to contribute to the economy, to the GDP, is very crucial. Because if you get that outflow, who are you left with? The ones who've been settling here for a long time, and that population is now retiring. And if they're retiring, and most likely they don't need to go back to work, then how are they going to contribute to the economy as how a younger adult might be, by working and paying and spending more than the older generation, right? There's proof out there that as you get older, you tend to spend less because you consume less. Simple as that, right? So the consumption will be less. The growth, the impact, the production, the GDP, all of that will be lower if you got young talent moving out and finding an opportunity elsewhere. So if that's the case, that basically puts a negative effect on the growth of Canada. The GDP of Canada slows down production. We heard Bank of Canada also talk about previously last year about that production, right? From workers, that needs to go up, and that's a problem in Canada. So if that's the case, and then you have high cost of living, you've got this tariff war, or simply you just get a simple event that causes things to blow up, Canada will be very much in big trouble. And we're already seeing that with the unemployment rate starting to tick up, the job market getting worse off, right? And so again, like I said in my previous video, all you need is one simple event for the dominoes to just topple. Also, I'll add in another one. Last year, I think it was, or the year before, talked about investment in Canada. Also seen record outflows. Because, yes, real estate did very well in the past decade in Canada. It's now kind of on a standstill and some areas declining. So if you foresee as an investor less opportunities to invest and make money, or you're worried about a potential recession or a crash, the loonie getting worse off, or you see potential opportunities elsewhere, like south of the border, like the US, which is showing signs of resilience in their own economy, strength there compared to Canada, you will move your money out and invest there, right? Especially with the US Treasury bonds that were giving quite high rates and returns. And they tend to be a little bit more on the safer side Thus, you will take your money and earn, free money by collecting those coupons on those treasury bonds. So you have a couple of things together here, which looks a little bit bad for the Canadian economy. That is one, this immigration, got the outflow of people, right? Lowering of the GDP, the growth, the unemployment rate ticking up, the investment outflow, less investment in Canada, right? Production, GDP weakening, fears of trade wars, geopolitical tensions, and a pending recession, which just basically puts Canada in a very, very scary position. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. How do you view this article and with everything that's going on? Do you see it more on a positive side, negative side? Leave a comment below, subscribe, hit the like button and bell icon to be notified on the next video. And I'll see you guys around. Cheers. Bye.